Emma Reads Crime here, your fellow crime thriller and mystery book lover. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I have to apologise for the state of me, but I am absolutely exhausted because the little man is with us at last. He is currently having a snooze downstairs while my husband is watching him, so I thought now would be a good time to film my November reading wrap-up. I read 10 books in total and I had 1 DNF. As with all my reading wrap-up videos, I'm going to start with my least favourite, end on a high with my favourite, but the real question is, did any of them score 5 stars out of 5? Then towards the end, I'm going to very quickly touch upon some books which I'm intending on reading in December. I will stop waffling and get straight to it. My DNF of the month was The Death of Us by Abigail Dean. I absolutely despised Girl A by this author. It wasn't my cup of tea whatsoever, but I'm always willing to give authors second chances, and also I'm reading it as part of a vlog which I will be posting probably in January. A serial killer breaks into a home and assaults a woman, and the story kind of follows the relationship breakdown between this lady and her husband, and it's set 10 years after the assault occurred. The actual serial killer element of the story reminded me of the Golden State Killer. I will link it here if you're not familiar with the case. I don't know if this case was the inspiration for the book, but I did notice some similarities. I DNF'd this around the 20% mark. I was really hoping that the story would focus more on the serial killer element of the case, but it doesn't. It focuses more on the relationship breakdown, and I just found the writing really pretentious. It wasn't for me, not my cup of tea. I can see why people really like it, but yeah, I just don't think that this author is for me. Next we have The Secret Lives of Murderers' Wives by Elizabeth Arnott. The tagline of this is basically, you've heard of the men who kill, but what about the women who love them? I absolutely love the premise of this. I thought it sounded a bit unique and something different to the norm. I also appreciated that the title is a play on The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, one of my absolute guilty pleasures when it comes to TV shows. I wasn't sure what to expect when going into this. Unfortunately, I just found it was really slow. I was really disappointed with it. I never wanted to really pick it up to read it. It just fell flat, and I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. Next up is The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I would just like to take a moment to appreciate, look at the floppage on this. 10 out of 10 floppage. I used to be obsessed with the Alex Rider Stormbreaker series when I was younger, but in adulthood I haven't actually read any Anthony Horowitz, and this was £3 on Amazon, so it's basically free. Crime writer Alan Conway is famous for his Atticus Pun series. However, his latest novel is not quite what it seems, and in between the text are some hidden secrets. The premise of this is basically a book within a book, which I really liked. I've seen it done before, but I don't come across it very often. However, this book has a lot, and I mean a lot of characters. It's been very cleverly well written, and it's one you really, really have to concentrate when reading it. I think if I had been in a different frame of mind, I would have loved it, but having baby brain, having concentration issues, this just was a bit difficult for me to get through. I ended up giving this 3 stars out of 5. Usually if I give a book 3 stars out of 5, I would not continue on with the series. This is book 1. I think there's 3 out in the series. However, I think I actually will give this series a chance in the future when I can concentrate better. Next up is one of my most anticipated reads for 2026, which is Caller Unknown by Gillian McAllister. Simone flies to America to meet her daughter Lucy to go on an American road trip. On the first night of their stay, Simone wakes up to find that Lucy has vanished. She receives a phone call, and in order to save her daughter, she needs to head to a location and do a deal. This just wasn't the page turner I was hoping it was going to be. I found it slow at times, and sometimes it was just a bit of a slog to get through. What might not have helped was I got a spoiler for one of the minor twists. However, when I think about it, I don't think that would have changed my feelings towards the book, and I gave it 3 stars out of 5. Next we have Welcome to the Family by Kate Gray. I have all her books on my TBR, but this is the first one I've actually gotten around to reading. Rosie is head over heels in love with her new boyfriend Theo. They've only been dating for about 8 months, but she goes away with him on holiday to his family home, which is abroad, to go and holiday with his family. Sister-in-law Fenna will be there, and she has been part of the family for years. And she's a bit frosty with Rosie. She doesn't trust her. There's not too much I can say about this. It was a light, easy, fun read. Didn't take itself too seriously. The twist at the end was a bit meh, nothing special. This is out in April and would make a great beach read, or if you're looking for something to read which doesn't require too much brain power. I gave this 3.5 stars out of 5. The Charlie Donnelly obsession continues, and in November I read 20 Years Later. This was mine and Michaela's in-person book club pick for November. I actually didn't make book club this month because of The Little Man. The medical examiner office has been constantly trying to find DNA matches for remains left over from the awful events of 9/11. And for the first time in years, they have found a match. They have found a tooth belonging to Victoria Ford. Prior to the events of 9/11, Victoria Ford had been accused of brutally killing her lover. Rising daytime TV star Avery decides to cover the case. I thought that this was such an interesting, unique premise for a book, and for the main plot itself, I absolutely loved it. However, I did feel that the story went off on tangents quite a lot and got sidetracked from the main story. I was going to give this 4 stars out of 5, but then when I looked at the books which I've given 4 stars to this month, I didn't enjoy this quite as much as them, so this book was a strong 3.5 stars out of 5. Next up is The Ice Angels by Caroline Mitchell, which is out in January. Caroline Mitchell is one of my favourite authors. I think she is brilliant. One thing that Caroline Mitchell is really good is doing detective series where there's only a handful of books per series. So this is book 1 in a new detective series, police procedural book, which she's doing. 10 years ago in Finland, Detective Elia's daughter was kidnapped. And in the present day, she still hasn't been found. In the present day in Lincoln, girls start vanishing again, and it's thought that the case is very similar to the case 10 years ago, the Ice Angels case, so Elia is dragged on to the case. She is determined to find out what has happened to her daughter. This was a great read, it was really addictive, and the main character liked to colour between the lines, or outside the lines, is that the phrase? She was kind of morally grey, and she made such an interesting read for a character. I sometimes find that first books of series have too much backstory, but the backstory kind of linked into the case, so it didn't feel too overwhelming and too boring. There's not much else to say about it apart from the fact I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the author goes with this series because the main character was brilliant. And I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. Next we have Grace by A.M. Shine, which is going to be out in February next year. This is a gothic horror tale, which isn't usually my kind of thing, but I loved The Watchers by this author. Grace was adopted and never really knew where she came from. However, one day a mysterious phone call takes her back to where she originally came from, a mysterious, atmospheric, isolated island. The locals believe that the dark times of the past are well behind them. Little do they know that that is not the case. As this is a bit different to my usual reads, I actually found reading it a breath of fresh air. It was almost, in a weird way, like a palate cleanser. I had no idea where the story of this was going to go. It had me on my toes the whole time, and there were some great twists towards the end, and I gave this 4 stars out of 5. We are 8 books down and 3 to go. If you've made it this far into the video, then thank you ever so much. If you're not already doing so and would like to hit that subscribe button, it would mean so much to me. If you're not aware, you can also find me on TikTok and on Instagram, and the handle is the same, at Emma Reads Crime. Now on for the final 3 books. Next we have The Pie and Mash Detective Agency by J.D. Brinkworth, which is a combination of 2 authors. Jane Pye and Simon Mash are a couple, and they have started doing a detective agency course. As part of their coursework, they are assigned a very interesting case. Dev Hooper arrives home to find that his girlfriend, Nellie Thorne, has completely disappeared. However, this is the 5th Nellie Thorne over the past 50 years to have disappeared. Sue Perkins, a UK TV personality, devoured this in one sitting, and Jonathan Ross, another UK TV personality, said that it was gripping and laugh out loud funny. It's a cosy mystery style book, very British is how I would describe it. I would disagree with Jonathan Ross. I personally didn't find it was laugh out loud funny, but it did make me chuckle at times. It was so wholesome. I love the cozy vibes of the whole story, and I cannot wait to continue on with this series. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. My second favourite book of November was Ask for Andrea, and I appreciate that I am extremely late to the party when it comes to reading this book. I went into this completely blind, so I had no idea what the story was about. All I knew was that people rave about it all the time. If you've not read the book, the best way I can describe it is it follows the stories of 3 ghosts of victims of a serial killer. I can see what all the fuss is about. I absolutely loved it. Having 3 different points of views made this so easy to fly through. You never got bored because you were constantly flitting through different points of views. I said this about a few books for November, but this applies for this book as well. I just thought the plot was a bit unique and different, not your norm. I felt it was missing a really good plot twist, but apart from that, I thought it was excellent and I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. No one is more surprised than me that my favourite book of November was written by a celebrity, and that is Gone Before Goodbye by Reese Witherspoon and Harlan Coben. Maggie was a highly skilled combat surgeon living life on the edge. After a few tragic life events, she ends up making some mistakes and getting her medical licence removed from her. She is now in serious financial debt. A former colleague of hers throws her a lifeline and he gives her a very top secret, very hush-hush job half the way across the world. When one of her patients mysteriously disappears, Maggie finds that she ends up being a fugitive on the run herself. I've done a whole video about how I think celebrity authors suck. However, because Reese Witherspoon wrote this with Harlan Coben, I guess Harlan Coben's input just meant that this really worked for me. I thought it was a little slow to get going and then I was hooked. I find action thrillers very hit and miss, and this was a big hit. I actually listened to this on audio because the audio is narrated by Reese Witherspoon and Chris Pine, and it is one of the best audiobooks I have ever listened to. It was a fantastic reading experience. Maybe if I'd have read this book as opposed to done the audio, I'd have felt differently about it, but when it comes to rating the book and my feelings, I have to go on my reading experience. I love the twist, I love the ending, I just thought it was a fantastic book. But the question is, did I give it 5 stars out of 5? And unfortunately, no, not quite. This was a 4.5 star out of 5 read from me. If you've seen any of my reading wrap-up videos before, you will know that I'm terrible when it comes to committing to a planned TBR. However, baby allowing me to have time to read, these 3 books will definitely be on my December TBR. First up is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harmon. I hear people rave about this all the time, so I have borrowed the audiobook from the library because it's a short audiobook, so hopefully I will get this listened to in December. The advice I've been given is to go into it completely blind, so that is what I am doing. Then on my Kindle, I am reading, and this is quite shocking, The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. Who even am I? I'm about 30% of the way through, and so far the best way I can describe it is a terrible masterpiece. It's weirdly addictive and I hate it at the same time. I posted about it on my Instagram story and a few people actually commented that they don't usually read that kind of book, but they're more thriller lovers like myself. But for this series, it's a guilty pleasure of theirs, and I can well and truly see it becoming a guilty pleasure of mine too. And obviously it's December, it's Christmas, so in December, obviously I'm hoping to read some Christmas thrillers. One of which will be The Christmas Clue by Nicola Upson. This is mine and Michaela's in-person book club pick for December. I often find that Christmas thrillers are not my favourite. Obviously there's exceptions to the rules. I really liked Peter Swanson's Christmas novella, I can't remember what it's called, but I'll pop it here. I find that they're just a bit too light, and I still want dark and disturbing even though it's Christmas. So if you have any dark and disturbing Christmas thriller book recommendations, please could you drop them in the comments. Obviously I just touched upon celebrity authors, so if you've not had a chance to check out my video on why I think celebrity authors suck, then I will link that video here. Also, have you had a chance to check out my latest video, Every Page is a Lie, the most shocking plot twist I've ever come across? If not, it's linked here. Thank you ever so much for taking your time to watch this video. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Bye.